We've got Warriors, Thunder, and Raptors, Cavs, and that means it's time to wake up, NBA! Welcome to Wake Up NBA, presented by State Farm. I'm Ryan, she's Susanna. We are down to the conference finals.
Yes,
now.
we are, Ryan.
So many teams with playoff dreams that are just gone.
We got four.
Yeah.
We got four left.
We do. Two which I don't think we necessarily expected to be here.
Yeah.
On the one hand, the Toronto Raptors, who had an excellent regular season, but what had Toronto done in the playoffs before?
Exactly.
And then on the other side, the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Hello.
Yeah, not only beat the Spurs, but did it by beating them in 3 consecutive games.
Yeah, it's been interesting and fun to watch.
So, that said, if we have two teams that have proven that they can do what we thought was impossible, what we thought was not within their realm of capability, can they beat the Cavs or the Warriors?
I think one team has a better chance of proving.
Are you going to tell us, or is this going to be a mystery show?
I don't want to, at the risk of pissing off a whole contingent of Toronto fans.
Yeah.
I just want to say congratulations for getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, the first time in team history. Amazing accomplishment. Enjoy this feeling while you can, because I don't see this going well for them moving forward. And I apologize. I don't mean to be like the Debbie Downer here on Wake Up NBA, but the Cavaliers.
The Cavaliers look amazing.
They look amazing. They have had 9. They're gonna have 9 days of rest.
Yes.
They have swept both series. They've played. So they've played.
They played 8
games.
Toronto has played 14 in the same roughly amount of time.
And they haven't
That's horrifying.
The thing is that in those 14 games, they haven't necessarily looked that great. Like Game 7 against Miami, it all kind of came together.
That was
the performance you've been sort of waiting to see if you're a Toronto fan.
Right.
Which, I mean, is good news heading into this series. However, just based on what we have seen from them so far, I am not convinced that is the performances that they are going to string together. And they are going to, Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan combined for 63 points. Can they do that? If they can do that consistently, then sure, they can.
But the whole
can
reason why the Raptors have played 14 games is because they haven't done that consistently. And they've done it against, a Miami team that lost Hassan Whiteside for most of that series. That was without their best player.
And for me,
Chris Bosh.
how do you defend the perimeter when the Cavaliers are shooting as well as they have? They shot over 50% from three-point range against them during the regular season. The Raptors' perimeter defense is ranked like 29th in the league. It's just not like there's a whole lot of things that aren't really lining up for me in this series. So I'm Mike Prada, our NBA editor, with a little hot take this morning, thinks that they can push it to 6, which I was like, well, I hope so. I really do hope so. I would love it to be a great series. I think they might be able to take one. I'm saying 5.
I mean, you do wonder if the Cavs have to have that game in them where they don't get some calls. One of the starters gets in stupid foul trouble early. Like, they can't, it doesn't feel like they can just sweep their way to the finals, though maybe they can.
Maybe they can.
This
I don't
is
know.
The year where everything seems to be breaking decidedly Cleveland's way.
Exactly, and they have looked pretty unstoppable in their charge thus far. Okay. So there's that. We're
gonna get to a possible way, not possible technically, but possible theoretically, way that Toronto can improve its chances against the Cavs. But before we do that, let's talk about the West, which it felt like for months we were just saying the Western side of the playoffs are just a formality. Yeah. It's just about when the Warriors will play the Spurs, and we knew they were going to be the 1 and 2 seeds, so you figured it was going to be the finals. And the Spurs are not here. The Spurs did not show up. So what do we think about the Thunder at this point? Because it should not be taken lightly what they just did to get to this point.
Absolutely not.
This was a San Antonio team that didn't play its best at stretches, and certainly some of the players, Tim Duncan, looked particularly old and lacking in their usual playoff greatness. But this is still, a team with a first-year coach, a team that sometimes, had flashes of the Oklahoma City sloppiness and problems that we're used to, but they got great contributions out of Dion Waiters. They got great contributions out of Steven Adams. Like, what are your feelings about how far they can push Golden State?
Well, I think they can. I think based on how they handled the Spurs, I think this is actually going to be a really fun series to watch. It's going to be gritty. It's going to be aggressive, and I honestly think that if there is one team that can kind of push Golden State at this point from what we've seen, it's OKC. I'm super pumped for this one. I think this is going to be it's going to be interesting.
It has potential. I mean, the Thunder, of the teams left in the playoffs, the Thunder have only had one game where they've allowed 10 or more three-pointers. And you look at Golden State's given up that many in 7 games, Cleveland's done it 5 times, Toronto twice. So they can lock down the perimeter somewhat. They are helped by the fact that they haven't played Cleveland. They haven't played Golden State. They haven't played some of the volume teams from behind the perimeter. The biggest question to me for the Thunder at this point is they have to clean up the turnovers. They are the highest turnover percentage team left in the playoffs. 12.9% of possessions end in a turnover. And it's just, it's one thing against the Spurs, who don't necessarily play with the pace of Golden State.
Sure.
But the Warriors are so good at turning your mistakes into points.
And they will make you pay, and they're so good in transition.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point that you bring up, Ryan.
The thing that's really scary about the Warriors right now, too, is their bench is playing so well. Averaging about 19 minutes a game. And in that time, this is definitely skewed by the fact that Steph Curry was considered a bench player for some of these games. 41 points of production off the bench. You compare that to the Thunder at a measly 27.7. Measly.
Paltry.
So I guess the question is, if you're the Thunder, do you try to get into an arms race with the Warriors and try to keep up with, some 120, 123 game? Or do you try to lock them down defensively, slow the game down a little bit? Or are these all just bad options that end poorly for you and end with the Warriors going back to the finals?
That's entirely possible. Okay. I'm trying not to envision that future.
Right.
But I think you've got to trust what works for you.
Yeah.
You've got to stick to what has worked and what has gotten you to this point. If they can continue to dominate on the inside, if they can continue to get their shooters hot, there's no reason why they can't keep up with this team.
Yeah.
Over a course of 7 games, we'll see. I don't know. But
I mean, and then there's the biggest factor of all of them in the Warriors' favor, which is that leads are not safe.
Right.
No lead is ever safe with this team. And, we saw Oklahoma City go through that with the Spurs. Almost, looked like they were maybe going to blow that big lead in Game 6. The Warriors, there is no point where you can look back and be like, oh, they're not there anymore.
Do you think, too, that there's any, that game, was it in February that Steph Curry hit that half-court shot?
Yep.
Was it a sign? Was it this sort of do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get real.
You're getting horoscope.
Yes, I do. I do. I'm sort of is that an omen of things to come?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Good. Let's kick it over to our esteemed associates, Roger and Seth, with more on the Spurs and where they go from here.
Tim Duncan and the Spurs got eliminated by the Thunder in Game 6, and now everybody's wondering if this is it for Duncan. Might have been his last game, and it's going to be sad to see one of the greatest players in NBA history go if it is the end. Roger, do you have anything to say about Tim Duncan and his wonderful career?
Yeah.
That's okay. Actually, if I may, I think we need to address a separate topic, which is that Roger, who is a wake-up NBA great, one of the greatest to ever do it, has kind of lost a step. Do you have any comments on that, Roger?
Let's send it back to the guys of the studio. Murphy?
Yeah. See, the thing is, Roger is really, I think, among the top 2 Wake Up NBA segment hosts ever. But he's clearly lost a step. He's fading. His game isn't quite what it used to be. It's really sad to see a legend like Roger go out like this. What are you doing, man?
Do you know what this is?
That's your microphone.
Oh. Whoops.
It's just not the same.
Back to you guys.
Wow.
That's hard to watch.
Wow.
Just
what's gone wrong?
Just because
Where did it go wrong?
You want people to be able to leave on their own terms, and you want them to play as long as they can and want to. But it's time to hang it up.
Man,
I mean,
that was brutal.
He's just laboring out there.
That was brutal. I feel a little gross right now.
He's damaging his legacy, and you deserve better than that, Roger.
Man.
All right, so before we close the show, we're going to talk. We're going to play a little bit of mad scientist here. We're going to take the Thunder and the Raptors, and we are going to Frankenstein-like graft on players that they don't currently have.
You're amazing.
Yeah, that we think could boost their chances of getting past their formidable opponents into the NBA Finals.
Yes.
We sort of limited this to, we're not just going to be like, you get Anthony Davis now.
Right.
We're trying to be a little more careful than that.
So not like all-star caliber.
Right. So let's start with you. Give me one player that we can just magically put on the Raptors, and all of a sudden it's a more interesting series.
This one was hard because I feel like Toronto, there's a few areas of need that should be addressed. But if I'm gonna choose one, I want to bolster the big man area. So I am giving them a healthy Hassan Whiteside.
Yeah.
Because especially if Valanciunas is not
lingering injury.
Yeah,
if
I
doesn't
don't
get to
know.
play,
His ankle looked like it was going to need like Gorilla Glue to stay together.
That is not an approved medical
tactic. It is
tactic,
not. I am not a doctor. But I feel like if they can, they've been successful when they can attack the boards, especially the offensive rebounds.
Right.
If they can get another big body in there. Bismack Biyombo has been awesome.
Fantastic.
But I whether or not he can kind of maintain the pace that he's been at, I don't know. So I give them another big body in there.
And
create some havoc.
And Biyombo's going to be asked to do a lot of different things against this Cavs lineup, especially with Kevin Love really finding his place in the offense going forward, which Kevin Love, we were so used to just bashing you and calling you bad.
I know. Now you're good.
I'm going to stick with sort of that logic for the Thunder. I'm going to give them Al-Farouq Aminu, who was great for Portland, most recently against the Warriors. Defended against Golden State, only gave up 11 3-pointers on 34 defensive possessions.
All right.
So the fact that he can get out, he can defend the perimeter a little bit, he can get you some rebounds, he's not a turnover machine at this point. I don't think he's going to be, he's not the kind of player you say, his 10, 12 points a game are going to really change it on the offensive side.
On that
but he does little things pretty well, and if you need him to play sustained minutes, he can do that for you.
I like it.
That said, both of what we just said is impossible.
It is
thanks
impossible.
to the NBA's draconian rules, which do not allow us to just.
We're the crusher of dreams.
Yeah.
We bring you up and then we just.
I do think that should be a rule going forward, that whatever the seed, just in the conference finals, whatever the seed difference is, you can sign 2 non-all-star players.
Get the commissioner on the phone right now.
So if you're an 8 seed and you make it all the way to play, you know, like a 2 seed, you get to, boom.
This is genius.
You get 6 players. This is the new rule that I have invented. Please pass it tomorrow.
Boom.
Until then,
sign
it. Conference finals time are here. Please remember that we are almost wrong about everything.
Pretty much.
So don't rely on us in any meaningful way. But this has been Wake Up NBA presented by State Farm. We will see you guys next week.